think we are live for another stream. I'm happy to say we are joined with a friend, Pierre Mortel here. Many of you may know him from some of his Age of Sigmar related comics on the Warhammer Community site.
And his comics about apocalyptic duck people.
Yeah.
Of course. My most famous work.
Yeah.
Very memorable.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there's I'm building a whole mythos, like in 20 years. It's gonna be like bigger than the Horus Heresy,
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to know is Sadboy part of the duck person universe?
Yeah, it should be because I'd been doing Sadboy for 3 years, I think, because I started in 2017 and I wanted to explore more of the universe. So I decided to open up to start a new comic strip that would be called Sad City. And and that's when I started drawing. I wound up drawing the Quickening comic, and so yeah, I think he's part of that universe. I'm still, because I want to do something. A lot of people are still asking me what's gonna happen with the duck, and they want me to do a sequel. So I might develop it into its own thing, but for now it's taking place in Sad City, and it's the same universe as Sadboy. So if I do a sequel, there's definitely gonna be a little Sadboy hidden somewhere, at least.
Do not fear, stale bread man. You have fed us. You will be spared.
Yeah.
The best. Yeah, I sent that to a bunch of my friends that don't know or care about Warhammer.
Yeah, I think that actually that kind of stuff is I feel that there's something in Warhammer that is the same feeling that you get with the absurdity of a duck being also very muscular and the herald of the apocalypse. There's something that's very in the spirit of 40k, at least the original spirit, I think.
Certainly.
Yeah, servo skulls and people worshipping computers and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, hey Lifeboat, nice to have you in the chat here.
Hi.
Lifeboat's a college friend of ours.
I also particularly want your earlier comics with the little skeleton drinking like the beer or whiskey and then deciding it's a good idea to light up a cigarette.
Yeah, I like this one. I think it's really hard to make silent comics work, especially very short silent comics. And so I was happy to have one that seemed to work right away, because usually I just don't do them because it's hard to find a good idea. But this
it works great. It's very easily readable, and it's immediately funny. Poor skeleton, and then his expression at the end. His expressions throughout are great.
Yeah, my favorite is the third panel where he's lighting the cigarette. He looks kind of excited and expecting, and that is quickly burned away, let's say.
I'm gonna try to open up some of the comics on my iPad.
Yeah, okay.
I think the earliest one.
But I feel one thing with comics in general, like sometimes it is always a challenge to think of how to best express something to show an idea that you have. Because now that I've started to read more and more comics, and sometimes it's hard to. Sometimes the imagery doesn't quite express what you think they were going for. So I feel like that's always a challenge.
Yeah, it's funny how like an idea is always better when you haven't tried to make it work. Like just the idea in your head is perfectly clear and funny, and then you try to
Mhm.
make it and you realize that either people don't really get it or you can't arrange the dialogue exactly the way you want, and like it's it can get pretty frustrating, and that's when you realize that a lot of people doing these very simple comic strips on the internet are actually like pretty good because there's a lot
Yeah.
of problems you wouldn't anticipate that you have to solve.
No, I mean
And so
that's
this is
true. Like well, it just in general putting text into anything, like it's really hard. Like getting
yeah
it to like actually work with like the artwork and whatnot. Like I can't do it, or I'm not very good at it. So yeah, a lot of
Feel
those things, particularly the simple looking comics and such, like getting it to like read well and like look like that is not a simple task.
yeah. I'm
well,
trying.
well, in that vein, I feel like a lot of people, at least initially looking at some of those comics, might think that they don't take that much effort, but
Yeah.
that is not true. Adam, is there a way that you could slightly adjust the screen size or whatever so the side of the comics and stuff aren't slightly clipped?
Yeah, let me see.
Okay. I'm making up a small album on the fly so I can have all the comics. I have also an added challenge with my comics. Sometimes I always do them both in French and English.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have some ideas that I haven't done because it doesn't translate in one of the languages for now.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think even just lots of like subtle things that can be done, even just like changing the color of text boxes or like the font and things like that. Like even with the quackening thing, how
Yeah.
the ducks have like the black text boxes and like little things like that, I think can go a long way to try to convey some like ideas of tone or sound qualities and such.
Yeah. It's a lot of stuff play a role, but it's really hard to anticipate exactly what's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you think something's gonna really work, and then no one likes it. And other times you realize that something you did off the cuff just hit the perfect note.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably true for a lot of stuff. Like you never know what goes into it until you try to do it.
Yeah.
Probably
Well,
very
so
true for painting miniatures too.
do you feel in some sense it matters during what time of the day you post the stuff?
I think it does. Like apparently it does because no, I know a lot of people doing that kind of stuff, and there's definitely times where you get more engagement. But I'm not like very very good with that.
Yeah.
I try to post it at the time when both people in Europe and the US would be awake.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually like morning where you are,
Mm-hmm.
But
But
honestly, just improving your reach is like a full-time job, I think, and
yeah.
I don't need that stress. Like sometimes you have to do some stuff, but like I don't want to become a community manager either.
Yeah, because there's so much you could do about expanding to different platforms. Like, for example, do you have a TikTok? You should be doing a TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. I actually should be doing a TikTok because I have plans to do more animation.
Yeah, and I feel I would
But
honestly, it would fit pretty well and would be could be
yeah,
pretty great. But yeah, it is
I
just one more thing to do, and then if it does become successful, it's one more thing that has a new stream of comments and audiences that like you have to keep curating and making sure. So yeah, it's just a lot of effort.
I'm really trying to get more organized so that I'm able to, because it's pretty stressful when you finish the comic the same day you post it, and then you have to go on Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, everything, post it, Twitter, check the comments again, and so and all that. So what I'm trying to do is have really a backlog and never post something that I've done the same day, so that it's a bit easier on me. I see. Like, honestly, I'd like to drop my Facebook page, but there still seems to be a lot of people subscribed, so I mean, I would feel bad about like cutting them off, but also like Facebook is really such a pain to handle.
I'm glad that for our Between the Vulture and Me stuff, we never decided to do anything with Facebook.
Yeah.
It's now we don't have to feel like we're abandoning it. Yeah, and we don't have to use it.
No.
Lifeboat asks if you have a favorite animal to draw.
Well, I think it depends, because like I realized like this last few months that I like drawing frogs. Like I drew some frogs from you guys, obviously, and also like in November I did a comic with a frog as well. I think it's a pretty funny animal, but like for a while I was drawing a lot of like weird Mickey Mouse kind of stuff. Like often I would turn him into some kind of mutant, you know, like. It's really a funny animal to draw because people recognize the shape
of
really
like the
well.
ears and all. Yeah.
Even if you distort it a lot, like people still know who you're drawing. And
like the pants with the buttons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There are some visual cues that like make it very apparent almost immediately.
Yeah. And the other one I think is I like drawing fish, but I don't really know a lot about fish, but I just like the fish, like kind of, I'm not sure the name. I think in French it's called the meru, because it's a fish with some big lips like that. And I always draw that kind of fish. Sometimes I just a little...
Like catfish and stuff have big, exactly, like puffy kind of lips like that.
Yeah. And like, I like also drawing fishmen with that same look.
Yeah. That's good. That's
honestly
good.
Yeah, a lot of, I think most animals are like really great. It's I don't know if you know the author C.K. Green. He's the guy who did the This Is Fine meme.
Okay, yeah.
And so I really like this guy's drawing because it's very, very simple but very like
expressive. And
yeah, and also it almost feels like the guy, you know, he's not taken seriously because he's doing very silly comics, but he's like a poet or a weird artist like that, because when you look into it, his stuff is really offbeat and not an easy laugh or easy wholesome stuff. It's and the latest series he's doing is called Funny Online Animals. And even the title is really funny, and just a bunch of, like, you know, rabbits and raccoons and stuff like that messing around, but with just a very weird offbeat vibe.
That's cool. I'll have to look into more of their stuff, because I think everyone's familiar at least with that meme.
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest comic memes that came out of these last few years.
Yeah, agreed. And I feel it does a pretty good job of expressing a sentiment that lots of people are feeling, that like everything's kind of crazy and terrible now.
Yeah, it's
You're
almost,
staying the course, and
it's like it really captures like a sense of dread. I think that really became prominent with the internet. You know, like it feels very generational. The sense that you're really aware of everything that's messed up, and you feel really powerless, but also you're constantly surrounded by it. I don't know, like it feels very.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't know that my grandparents would find it funny or quite get it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think anybody that has spent time or a significant amount of time on the internet, like just about every reasonably young person today, can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I actually did on my Mortal Realms Instagram. I did a version of this. I'm gonna put it on the screen. I just did a take on this meme because I really like it.
Of
This is fine.
yeah, of the fire dwarf, whatever they're called.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fire Slayer.
Yeah.
That's good. Has his little coffee cup or whatever he's drinking, whether maybe it's not coffee.
Might be
it
beer,
could be mead or something.
With Age of Sigmar, it's probably beer, but it's called like Fire Ale.
Fire water or something. Yeah.
It could be like liquid gold or something. Some of the dwarves like that.
Oh yeah, I think that was a thing.
With their air gold or some weird and a little dumb.
I really try to stay faithful to the original drawing. This was really a fun one to do.
Well, that's probably more fine for him than it was for that dog.
Yeah, actually, now that you're saying it, it's kind of almost a wholesome take because this is actually fine for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have one of your Mortal Realms one with kind of making fun of the new like high elves. Like, be honest, is this hat too much?
Yeah.
It's like very much like that's something we've been joking about for a long time, about all of that stuff, and like I think it pokes fun at it in a good way.
Yeah, I think this like at least half my ideas for Mortal Realms are just pointing out the absurd in Warhammer, you know, but
yeah, there it is. Be honest.
Yeah.
They're trying.
Yeah. It's really funny, I think, because I think it's really a conscious decision from Games Workshop to really push the aesthetic, you know. And so, like, I was looking at some old illustrations of from Warhammer 40,000, you know, that were like, I think early 90s. And it was like some squats and some orcs. It was crazy because they're all dressed in very garish red and blue and yellow colors, you know, and they look actually very silly too. And so I think there was the period of time where I was most into Games Workshop was probably the darkest, you know, with like Paul Dainton and Kopinski and still the lot of black and white art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think the pendulum swung back, and we are in an age of almost camp. Like camp is back, and you just be you know, be the weird elf and whatever, and have weird hats. In 10 years, it's gonna swing back to extremely dark and gritty.
That's probably true.
Well, I think with Age of Sigmar, I feel like they wanted to create something where there are so many realms that it could have a bunch of really grim stuff, but also have kind of more whimsical stuff. Like, so with all the newer goblin stuff and those weird big nosed ogres and stuff, they feel a little bit more whimsical and stuff than maybe some of the other Age of Sigmar stuff that they've released.
Yeah, I think
the new death stuff is more a return to that sort of darker form, but
they want everyone to be able to do, anything. Like, I think it's a smart decision in terms of helping people get into your universe. It's also very non-committal, so that anything's possible. So nothing's really real either. Like, if the realms are infinite, it's funny because you have. I think I've read a lot about people's opinions about Age of Sigmar and even 40K. Where you have to create a universe, but it's not a novel. You have to let also people be able to insert themselves into it.
Yeah.
And so there's a weird balancing act to have, between establishing a canon and also saying, but hey, you do you can invent what you want.
Yeah, I feel 40K, since it's been around as long as it has now, it's maybe easier for people to kind of do their own thing, but the world still seems pretty established and firm. Whereas Age of Sigmar, even though it's been around for a number of years now, and there's a fair amount of lore, not as many people have, read it or bought into it, so it's still a little bit up in the air. And just even the fact that there are so many of like the classic races or like old world races that they haven't really done that much with, so like people don't really know what to expect from all that, and it's maybe harder to have the same level of buy-in that maybe people do for 40K.
I think there's something that also happens with the what I know. I don't know a lot about the Marvel comic books, but from what I've seen, they have a lot of alternate timelines.
They do,
but
yeah.
It seems hard to take completely seriously when you know that a lot of these timelines were just created so they could relaunch a book series or something like that, Like it's not a narrative necessity. It's more like, oh no, we want to do another take on Spider-Man or whatever, so let's create another Earth where this time Mary Jane is dead, younger, and he's from San Francisco or whatever.
Yeah, well, there's now a lot of those characters have been around for so long, and there have been so many stories, and like I feel like you'd have to really keep on the up and up with it to know what they consider to be officially canon and what's just some side universe. Lifeboat here, he's probably the most into comics of my friends. So he could probably touch on that in some capacity. But I feel like with a lot of those main heroes, like every 10 years, DC or Marvel wants to kind of reboot it to make it fit more with the current generation. Like now, like Marvel's Punisher, he's probably like an Iraqi war veteran or something when he used to be a Vietnam veteran.
He would be getting on in years. Did they ever make like a comic with the Punisher that's just a really old guy that's hanging out at the VA, with old hunters and wearing baseball caps?
They certainly have ones where he's older. I don't know if it's like he's in the more laid back form, right?
Do you know the artist Richard Corbin? He drew a lot of horror stuff. He recently passed away. So one of his,
I remember he was.
He used lots of different like mixed media and stuff, and was yeah, he was pretty old, so he was in the business for a while. But he drew a single issue Punisher comic that Garth Ennis wrote. So Garth Ennis is the guy who wrote Preacher and The Boys and a bunch of now fairly popular things. But it was a single issue where it was a little bit ways into the future, where there was like a nuclear holocaust, and the Punisher was old at that point, and he had been in prison, and now that this nuclear holocaust happened, he was able to get out. And so that was exploring a little bit of him as an old dude and going on one final mission to try to kill some people. And Richard Corbin, the artist, was great at drawing really ugly people.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I saw an exhibition of his art in a French comic festival recently.
Oh, that's cool.
Like lots of paintings. It's almost like the Frazetta generation, like very impressive lighting effects and such, and very extensive knowledge of anatomy and very. I remember I was really impressed. Like some of these guys were really, really crazy good. Like,
yeah, and I think he was one that was experimenting with different medias and style before a lot of other like comic artists were. And I think he was one of the early people to like not only draw but also color his own work and stuff. Whereas now with a lot of the comic industry, like you have a penciler and you have an inker and a letterer. And a colorer, where he would, I believe, often do all of that himself.
Yeah, I think like honestly, like if I could hire a letterer, I would. I really hate doing that. Like sometimes I get some good lettering, but most of the time it's a pain, and I think I'm just gonna switch to using a font because it's just not worth it, for at least for comic strips, and even sometimes like I think the handmade font look better, but sometimes the having just a basic font is almost funnier. It can be part of the aesthetic.
Yes.
When I almost wonder, there's probably a sizable number of people reading the stuff that wouldn't even realize that you went the time to letter all the stuff yourself.
Yeah, like I think most people just don't think about it, and like it's you can see it. I think in modeling is the same. Like you're worrying about if you use the right shade of red for highlight or whatever. And most people just look at it and go like, "Whoa, you painted that yourself, or did you buy it like that?" Like they just don't think about that. And I mean, sometimes stuff is really good because the guy put in the extra effort, but it's not always worth it. Like you just have to pick your battles sometimes, I think.
Yes, that's certainly true. Well, I think we should probably soon start recording the actual episode of the podcast. Looks like Eric stepped away for a moment, but I feel when he gets back, maybe we can start it. I like your little, the goblin you're working on here. Is he going to be sitting on a larger mushroom?
Exactly.
I hope so. Yeah.
It's mushrooms all the way down.
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect.
That's good.
Well, I feel like the goblin design has changed quite a bit over the years since GW has started making them.
Yeah.
Like his nose isn't that big.
Yeah.
It's still pretty big, but
as big as the face.
Yeah.
Lifeboat just asked, what is something that's hard to draw that shouldn't be hard to draw? Yeah.
I want to say everything, but what gives me trouble is I need to think about this for a bit. I think just the actually okay. I'm gonna answer. For me, one thing that seems pretty straightforward, but I never get right is cars. Like even with reference, it takes me really a while to have something that looks like a decent car, even simplified.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, they are hard to draw. Like, there's a lot that you have to get right for it to read really well, I think.
And not look distorted. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I don't draw cars or like bicycles. I bet bicycles.
Ooh, bicycles are terrible.
Bicycles are the worst. I changed my answer to bicycles.
Yeah, bicycles are awful. Well, a bicycle's something that you think you have a good sense of exactly what they look like, and then if you try drawing it without like a reference or something, it's like, God, I fucked that.
Yeah.
Well, it's somewhat in that vein. Yeah. Oh, that's a bicycle. Yes.
What?
That's pretty.
Or it certainly reads as a bicycle.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like with like Mobile Suit Gundam and like the Gundam mangas and stuff. Imagine having to draw those mobile suits with all those very distinct straight lines and angles and stuff. Draw them all the time and make them look consistent and everything the same size. That seems horrible.
I think, like, from the few guys I know who draw that kind of stuff, I don't know anyone who draws Gundam comics, but like the guys I know who would draw that kind of stuff are just really into that type of drawing. Like, if you tell them I have a very complex robot, that you have to do in perspective, they're just salivating. They just love that stuff.
Okay.
I think that's probably true.
Sounds so hard.
Oh yeah. I think I had to draw for one of the Neverchosen comics. I had to draw the sort of spirit of the mountain of the new elves, the Realm Lords.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like the giant dude. And that was kind of hard too, because I spent a lot of time looking at the miniatures on the website, trying to understand the shape of the armor and everything. And
like
what
are like the visual elements that would really sort of give the viewer immediately set them into that like mindset and understand what it is? Yeah.
Are you talking about the elf dude with the mountain on his back?
Yeah, this guy.
Or you then broke out Moloch.
Yeah, Grotus and Molch.
Or broke them out because he painted some models for him.
Yeah, he traded him freedom for models to put on his mountain.
Yeah. Pretty great.
Yeah, because I was wondering if like this was an intentional inside joke for the studio guys to. It's basically a Warhammer model with some terrain on his back, So if you wanted to make some, like make a little diorama with some Stormcast playing Age of Sigmar, you could use this mountain as the terrain,
Yeah.
So it's like some Inception stuff. The model within a model.
Oh, hey everyone, thanks for joining Var, Beefy Kobe. Nice to have you here in the chat. Wait, Lightbook says, can you shout out the link to the Insta in chat? Oh. Here, let me...
Okay, so you pronounce it Molch. I guess I saw it the first time I saw it. I thought there would be another O in there and it would be Moloch, but I see that O isn't there. It's not there.
The way I pronounce it is Grotus and Molch.
Molch. All right. Well, that's what we'll do.
I just thought it sounded really gnarly, Kind of.
Yeah, I agree.
It just sounds you'd get when you're scraping your throat, like Grotus. Molch.
Yeah. So, what's the thought, Eric? Do you think we're ready to start?
Yeah, I think we
recording
can
the
probably
podcast?
just get on into it. If people are ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, and when you play the podcast theme, I do like a slow pen out from my drawing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mind you, the podcast theme is like 30 seconds, so it's a little long. And actually, our friend Lifeboat in the chat here, he's the one that did the theme. Yeah, he did.
Nice job. I love that.
Thanks,
theme.
Lifeboat. All right, yeah. Well, so I think I'm gonna start the recording then. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dragged into Turbolasers, a Between the Bolter and Me podcast. This is episode 83. I'm your host, Eric Wire, and I'm joined with my two brothers, Adam Wire.
Hey, everybody.
Greg Wire.
Hey, everyone.
And I'm really excited to have the wonderful artist, Pierre Mortel, here with us. How are you doing?
Hey, everyone. I'm doing fine.
Yeah, great.
Live from France.
Yeah, it's true. It's great to have you on here and just to talk a little bit about your work, your comics, maybe how it relates to Games Workshop and their, universes and such. And yeah, just really excited to have you on here.
Same. I've been listening to this podcast for a while, even while drawing and painting, and so it's really cool to be part of it.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I guess just if people are just listening to this, will also be able to watch it on YouTube or Twitch and actually see some of the art itself and Pierre doing some sketches and things like that. So I feel it's worth looking into that as well. But yeah, I guess, with that, maybe we can just sort of get into this and just have various questions and stuff we can ask you. But maybe a super general question would be, like, how have you sort of gotten into making comics and arts and that sort of thing? And do you have, like, any particular training, art degrees, anything like that? Or has it been more self-taught?
Yeah, so like as a kid, I used to draw like every kid, and I think when I was around 8, I was reading a lot of comic books, mostly European comic books, like Tintin and Asterix and a lot of other stuff because my parents had a lot of them. So I already had that kind of as a background culture. And when I was around 9 or 10, I realized that drawing comics was actually a job that you could get. So I was all over that. I decided I wanted to be like a comic artist. And then I kind of kept drawing during high school, but not that crazy into comics for a while. I studied some graphic design and specialized in motion design, which is like animated graphic design, basically like animating logos, characters, anything.
Mm-hmm.
And as a student, I got back into making like comics. I had a blog and stuff like that. And I think a few years ago, when I was around 25, I decided that I really wanted to draw more seriously because the other path for me was just doing some advertising forever, which was not really something I was into. So I started doing some small art shows and drawing like doing illustrations and stuff like that. And then got on Instagram and basically just kept doing that whenever I didn't have a freelance gig. And now, since like probably only a couple of years, I'm starting to get some paid work as as my own artist, and supplementing that with some freelance work when I find some. And so I'm on the right track. But I think if I had told my younger self that it would take me so long, maybe I would have changed my mind. But now I'm there and I love it.
Well, it's
Yeah,
good
I
you
feel
got there.
Yeah, but I feel it has to be a challenging thing to, make a name for yourself and get out there. I mean, I guess the internet makes it easier in some respects, but then again, I think we're all so awash with different stimuli and such from all corners of the internet that I think it can be hard to slow down and appreciate things at times. So
Yeah, I think it's probably good for me because like I basically I think I was able to slowly find kind of my niche and my voice and everything. But it's also, I think, if you just try for long enough, you should reach some measure of success at some point. It's just that it's sometimes it's not really worth it, like I don't think making it like professionally means you're a better artist than some other people. It just, most of the time you stuck it out and you changed to find the work you needed or whatever. But a lot of people give up, and sometimes it's just the smart option, because you can just, if you like painting and drawing, you can also make it on the side, and it's just as fulfilling or more.
No, that's
So,
fair.
Yeah,
what
is
I'm
that
trying-
something that you've sort of come like butted heads with, the fact that you're trying to make this passion of yours into, a career? Has that been challenging, or is it something that you enjoy enough that you always kind of enjoy the projects you're working on?
I think now I realize that I like doing animation and motion design, but a lot of the projects I work on, I don't really like them, and sometimes it's almost painful because you have to use the creative side of your brain. But it's it's not even, sometimes it's like the type of clients you get, and sometimes it's just that you realize that you're doing something that brings no value even to your client. Like, they just have a budget and they want some video.
okay.
I
And
hear
so
that.
yeah, so this has been something I've struggled with. And so what I'm trying to do is to start to get some jobs that are clients that want my work, and not just some guy who can do animation, but they want the kind of stuff that I like doing. And so, and honestly, like, I've really had to learn to not just want to be an artist, but enjoy the actual process of doing the art. And I think it was not a given at the beginning, but now, like, whenever I have an illustration gig, I feel so happy that I'm able to do this. It's honestly the best kind of job I could have, I think.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, and it's nice that you feel like you've gotten to that point. I guess one of the first things I came across your work was a series of like comics, like Sadboy, your character, and a little talking bag and whatnot. And I feel people should certainly look into Sadboy, but they're very kind of dark and mischievous with a sort of grim, dark humor. Can you talk a little bit about this character, maybe the origins and how this came to be, or where you think it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sadboy was it is a character I created like 4 years ago, probably. It was a period where I was I think I was a bit depressed, and with my girlfriend at the time, I realized that sometimes I was being very negative, like I caught myself just saying a negative sentence after another, and when I realized it, I would push what the negative in what I was saying in order to turn it into a joke, like say, oh, what shitty weather, and then when I realized I've been whining again, I start saying this weather makes me want to kill myself or whatever, until I could make her laugh. And so I had a kind of, I think, a difficult period of my life at that time, because I had a breakup soon after and stuff like that, and I created this character as a way to work out the absurdity of being sad all the time, like sometimes you feel so sad it's kind of ridiculous, and you can even resent people from trying to cheer you up, because a part of you just want to be this completely sad person. So I decided to make a character that would be a parody of that type of sadness, so he's defined by his sadness, and I try to derive humor from it.
That's a good idea. That's a good way to channel some of that. Like, more recently you had one where Sadboy like punches the head off of a snowman.
Yeah.
And then he's almost immediately pushed to the ground by like police officers.
Yeah, the snow police are no joke.
It's great. Well, I feel the comic and that sort of grappling with this idea of sadness, anxiety, things like that is also kind of a good meditation and just sort of mental illness and problems. And like, I feel like particularly with things like COVID happening, a lot of us have been maybe more stuck at home and stuck with our thoughts and whatnot. And it's sort of good to have an outlet there and feeling like that other people, understand you or want to talk about it and whatnot. And I think, Sadboy, I feel I can relate to it in sort of his mischievous and depressing takes or adventures. I think he has been fun and sort of cathartic in a way to like read and see. So I like them, and I feel over time you've kind of built up a large world for them and different characters and such. Do you have can you give us any thoughts on some of them, like the little animated bag, for example? Billy Boo.
Yeah, I'm drawing right now. So Billy Boo was like, so he's basically no one knows exactly whether he's a ghost or a plastic bag, because he's like a plastic bag with a face. So is he a dead plastic bag, or is it a ghost that possessed the plastic bag, or something else? No one's really sure, especially since it's in a world where there are actually ghosts and stuff like that. But he's like Sadboy's probably only real friend, and he's just a very down to earth, simple guy who's not like as tormented as Sadboy, and kind of keeps him grounded, but also seems to probably have been. Actually, I think Billy Boo has had a harder life than Sadboy, and so sometimes he's kind of, amused or perplexed by Sadboy's constant drama, because he's like, okay, like, you're just spinning your wheels here, like, it's just. And I like him because part of what I wanted to do with Sadboy is it's like an outlet for sadness, but it's also showing that, sometimes it's a real sadness and real problems, and sometimes you are kind of indulging yourself, So Billy Boo can call him out on that. Like, I remember a comic where Sadboy is saying something really somber where they're eating a burger, and Billy Boo just loses it on him and says, like, what did we say? No sad talk on Burger Friday, And Sadboy say, yeah, sorry. And so yeah, there's Billy Boo, and there's a couple of other characters. There's Snack Jack, which is like a vulture that has a burger stand. And so it's just selling some really dubious stuff, roadkill sandwich and stuff like that. And you have Death, like it's a very common comic strip trope these days to have Death as a character, but I like it. So a lot of people seem to think that when they see Sadboy comics in the wild, to think that Sadboy himself is the Grim Reaper because he has that hood,
Oh, yeah, the pointed
face.
hood.
And actually, the Death in my comic is basically has the same shape as Sadboy, but has a robe instead of a sweater and a skull coming out of the hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel I feel you've slowly been kind of expanding this universe. And I guess particularly you have more recently one of your comics I think went viral, the Quackening, with all these. It starts with a bunch of sort of regular ducks and an older man feeding them, and then you see there a bunch of these more monstrous sort of large ducks and such. And does that fit in with the same universe? And do you have plans to kind of expand that and tie them together, or is that still sort of up in the air?
I'm not sure exactly, but the basic idea is that I wanted to do some comics that were not tied to Sadboy directly, but could be from the same universe. And so I wanted to expand to have a comic strip that would be in color and that would explore the world around him. That would be called Sad City, because that's the very original name of the city where Sadboy is from. And so I started doing like more freeform comic strips, and this one with the duck invasion. So I'm not entirely sure, but it's probably happening somewhere in Sad City. And I've been actually, I haven't done any sequel to this comic strip, but I really, really want to, and I've been writing and throwing away a lot of stuff because I don't want to just like make a few more pages. I want to find a way to really make it a cool story, maybe in a different medium or whatever. So I'm still working on it, and but yeah, this comic really went viral like crazy. Like it's and still I see a lot of it's reposted a lot of time, and it's been translated, in Portuguese, in Spanish, in Russian, whatever. It's I see it in the wild sometimes. The nicer one credit me, and so I get to see a bunch of Brazilian people commenting about ducks and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's excellent, and like it's certainly a charming and funny thing. And I guess that maybe can. Well, first of all, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you see me?
Yeah. I just wanted to be sure, but kind of with that, with the weird sort of muscular ducks, that maybe can lead into some of how I think your art style and just charming sense of humor and such fits with some of, or kind of curiously fits with some of Games Workshop settings, particularly in the early 90s, where they had more humor and such within their settings and kind of dark humor and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And your work, I think, kind of fits that nicely. And you had, for example, even your duck sort of creature. At least I think I recall one comic where you had some beastmen, and one of the beastmen was like this sort of duck person. I think you kind of have a little set of strips just under the name of Mortel Realms, sort of a spin-off of Mortal Realms. And I think that is a good illustration of this fit. Can you talk a little bit about what encouraged you to start, branching into Games Workshop settings and such with your comics. And actually, before that, do you intend to still be like streaming and showing what you're working on? Yeah, because if you do, that seems to have stopped.
Oh, I think because my iPad locked himself. Let me try to reshare it. So, okay, this is me. Hey everyone. And screen share. Yeah, I'm more comfortable with streaming my drawings than my face usually. So let me know if you're seeing the art.
Okay, we're now seeing. Yep, we're seeing it again. We see
Okay,
the goblin.
Right. So yeah, I grew up on Warhammer. I think from the age of like 9 or something like that. Was always kind of into it, even if like a lot of people, I stopped for a while during like college and stuff, and so it's always been part of my imaginary landscape or whatever, and then like a couple 3 years ago, something like that, I realized I started seeing these comics on the community website.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, like, I do comics, I know Warhammer, like this really sounds like something I like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically I started writing down some ideas, and the more I did, the more I thought, like, this is really something I would enjoy, you know, like there's this fits right in. It's really fun to draw, to make fun of all that stuff, and also I get to draw some fantasy stuff, which I've always liked. And so I made a set of comics and I sent them to. I found the address of the community team, and I sent them like 3 comics, and asking, like, I didn't even know like if it was like just fan comics or a paid thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just sent them saying, "Hey, I see you're doing some comics. I'd like to, if you're looking for some people, I'd like to be part of it."
Mm-hmm.
And they told me something like, "We don't have a spot right now, but we like your comics and we'd like maybe to commission you at some point." So I was just really happy about that. And then like a couple months later, I started doing what became Neverchosen.
Yeah, no, I was super excited when I heard that you were actually starting to do comics for them in the Neverchosen strip. Like, I felt, as I said, it fits so well, and it also has a clever name, Neverchosen. But yes, I was super excited to see that, and it's just nice to see your take on some of these characters and such. For Neverchosen, was it always your intent to follow like the same set of characters? I mean, I guess not all of them do. So it's kind of a mix of some with the Neverchosen characters, as well as just some kind of random characters.
Well, at first, like the first comics I sent didn't focus on any characters in particular, and the first season of the idea of Neverchosen was to be a strip that was based around the Warcry that had just came out at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the first season of Neverchosen was, like, I think still is the largest, because it was something like, no, it's not the largest actually. It was just 7 comics, but I pitched a lot more for the first one.
Okay.
And they wanted me to include all the factions that would have faction cards released for Warcry on the first run. So there was a bunch of factions, including the Nurgle Wordbringers. And so I did 7 strips that all had different characters, but I had these Blight Kings, these Nurgle warriors that were featured in a couple of them, and I really liked them, and I saw that people responded well to them as well. And so when I did the second season, I tried to make it work like kind of like a Warcry campaign when you have a series of battles with a few key battles that are very important and the other one that are more filler type battles. Well, I wrote like a few strips that would be the main adventures of Grotus and Molch, and some other ones that could be moved around and happening in between and didn't have to even have them inside. And that's so I try to make them know is that Grotus and Molch are the main thread of the story, but you can stop by and see some what's happening to other characters as well.
Yeah. How much free reign do you have in sort of making these comics? Do you just draw them and submit them and then they kind of give you feedback and like you still have a fair amount of control over that, or do they?
Well, basically, like I submit some rough drafts before I draw them, but usually they don't have a lot of notes. Like I think a couple times they refuse the gag because you can't really do stuff. I can't really make up a type of warrior that wouldn't exist, for instance, like something that's like creating adding to the IP can be problematic for them because they're just Warhammer Community is like the communication arm of Games Workshop. So, they can't really have a new monster in a comic or something like that. But other than that, it's mostly just wording stuff, since I'm not originally an English speaker, sometimes I have some weird way to phrase things or I miss a comma or whatever. But other than that, like they've been really just letting me do my thing and really they've been really great for that. Like I had a basic brief for the first season, but after that they just asked me what I wanted to do and let me submit it. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's really great. I guess one thing that is sort of an interesting dichotomy with Games Workshop and your work, like Games Workshop, like they're sort of renowned for having these incredibly detailed miniatures and designs, whereas I feel your work, like you have a real talent for taking these like complex designs like Games Workshop ones and sort of simplifying them and minimizing them to like these basic shapes and like the most important elements of them. Like, do you have a particular process for doing this to like still get these characters to read as these different Games Workshop IPs? Like like all of them, I feel like instantly, even though they're not like obviously made off of a particular model, you still recognize them for what they are.
Well, I think like I don't have like the process. It's just I look at illustrations and I use the lazy part of my brain to figure out what I don't have to draw, But also a lot of Games Workshop designs are really clever because although they're famous for their details and everything, you can tell that the designers are really thinking about silhouette and readability and stuff like that. And so I think for Grotus and Molch are a great example because the silhouettes they have are, you can read them as Blight Kings pretty easily. Like for a Games Workshop character, if you have something like that, it's basically an ogre or an Argyle warrior, like this very fat and strong and wide guy. And so if you had like a horn or some element of armor like that, plus like a big sword, you already know that it's gonna be like anyone who knows Warhammer can recognize the silhouette of an Argyle guy. So I think I'm good at synthesizing that kind of stuff, like just simplifying and catching it. But it helps that the designs are really well done on that regard too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, yeah, I think it is clear that the designers are thinking about those things because both for just pleasing designs, but then also to be readable across like a tabletop if you have all these models and
Yeah.
and things of that nature. Um, when I posed just the idea that we were going to have you on the podcast here, was ask a question as to whether we can expect to see more of the blue horror that you had featured in one of the recent strips that was actually in the one door that Grotus and Molch got through. And like, yeah, I second that question, and because it's pretty charming and also fun to see that sort of old blue horror design from early 90s.
Yeah. So I was I like the idea of having like basically at the beginning. This is because of my girlfriend actually, because at the beginning I had my plan for this trip was just to have a door with a demon that was just part of the door, that was just like a face on the door. And my girlfriend said that it would be really funny if you could see that it's just a guy stuck in the door, and when you open the door you have his ass on the other side.
Yeah.
And so I actually agreed, and I think it really makes it feel, almost like something you would see in a Terry Pratchett novel. It's just a demon with a bad job.
Yeah, that's true.
And it fits with just sort of the absurdity of things and maybe what Zinch might do to some of his followers.
Yeah, it's probably a guy who got really big and too big for, like, just got too ambitious and then was sentenced to 1,000 years in the door.
Yeah. But
Maybe
as I
used
sort
to
of
be a
mentioned, I
general.
like that it has like some of the older designs because like in Games Workshop has certainly started to do that more and more, like looking back to their old miniature catalog and trying to update some of them. And I like for this blue horror that he kind of fits that theme, that again people recognize it pretty instantly due to the shapes and colors and such, even though it isn't necessarily exactly like what the current model ranges are.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, like, I guess it's my hipster side. Even when I got into Warhammer, I was already interested in the earliest stuff that I hadn't seen by myself, because basically I got into it around the start of 3rd edition 40k. So you had White Dwarf articles and stuff mentioning Realm of Chaos and all that, the Realm of Chaos books and all these earliest editions, and I was already very interested in that. And so I learned to really like the goofy side of Warhammer that you could see at that time, of the silly demons and all that stuff. And I liked that this was the same world that as the gritty dark space marines. You could have the big nosed blue horrors and all that stuff. And yeah, I really like that. And I don't know if the blue horror will be back in some next comics, but I'll definitely consider it. Like, maybe she will be assigned to a different door or
yeah
another piece of furniture.
Yeah, he's like constant. That's his torment.
Yeah.
Well, I guess since, as you sort of suggested, you've been kind of invested in the Games Workshop worlds for quite a while now.
Yeah.
How do you feel their like art style, their artwork models, and things like that have influenced your art?
Well, I think there's been different stuff. I think one of the thing that's been very impressive for me when looking at Games Workshop art is the way they would mash influences together. Like when you see some John Blanchard, for instance, and you have a priest with a robot arm, with a spaceship that's also a cathedral, like that idea that you can mix very different like you can be in the future, but it also looks like the past. I think that idea of very creative, and you can have aliens that are fighting against like basically the Spanish Inquisition, and that idea of taking 2 or 3 or 5 different influences and mashing them together instead of trying to find something that's very coherent, it creates like it creates. So I think it's the one of the important thing about art or creativity is that you put together 2 things and it creates a new thing, you know. And I think probably that, and also just the amazing storytelling that you had in some of these illustrations and even game pictures, you know, when you feel that there's more to it than just the picture you're seeing, you know, like it's just a window into a world. And I think that's something that the illustrators were really good at communicating. When you just see a couple of fighters and a few background figures, but you feel that you're inside the big battle, and it's an important battle in a real world and all that stuff. So
I feel like in that vein, there were a number of years ago that I feel Games Workshop, a lot of the art in their books kind of verged away from that, and they would only depict things that had models made of. And I feel like that kind of took away from some of the stuff where it didn't feel like its own world and a whole story within a picture. It was just, all right, let's make an image of the models that you can buy. And that was less exciting.
Yeah, I feel that was a disappointment because it also didn't allow the artists to have their own expression and interpretations of the world. It was just like, we're releasing this new Space Marine bike with plasma gun, whatever. Like, make sure you cram that in there.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like, I think it was very crazy because I think it happened basically in the time I was not really into the hobby. And then when I got back into it and started doing White Dwarfs, and I would look at the illustrations, that they were technically good, you know, but like it was clear that there was no invention going on. It was just the model. And so I thought that was a really disappointing, but like I worked also in the video game industry a little bit, and you can tell that it's something that I think they had probably a big challenge for Games Workshop to figure out, was that as you get a bigger company and you need to have a steady stream of income and, you know, keep converting new people and everything, you need to have some method, you know. So you have, because now it's not just there's a friend of John Blanche who can come over and do some illustration for the next codex, you know. I think they used to work kind of like that, you know, like, hey, I met the guy at the pub, he can draw some demons, you know, we'll make up some rules. And now they have to like, they have releases that go worldwide and all that stuff. And so I think for a while they probably had more freelance artists and just stick to the brief. We need 3 pieces for the next toe armor or whatever. And they definitely lost some soul at that point, but I think it was to be expected. But I'm glad that they seem to kind of be finding a balance with that, you know, because obviously you need illustration that sell models, but if you look at how Games Workshop became so influential, it's also because they let the artists like go wild and not just draw toys, you know, but draw worlds.
Yeah, I feel that's where they're at their strongest, and it kind of the same even with the Black Library and their novels and such, allowing the writers sort of free reign, at least to a point, to like create interesting characters and settings and things. That's what allows it to feel like such an expansive and interesting universe and setting. And I'm really pleased that they're kind of back into that with their art and whatnot, because it's also what inspires people to want to convert things and do their own thing. So it's good it's back.
Yeah, completely. Like, I think I think like there's probably like two sides of Games Workshop, because you have they need the creative part, so they're able to have something new and something exciting, but they also need the business part that just needs something that they can easily box up and calculate the margins with, and they need each other. So yeah, I think the business part is gonna stay really strong, and they're definitely making some savvy decisions, you know. And also, I think sometimes people like us have to keep in mind that we're almost the weirdos, because like most of their money comes from 13-year-old boys, you know, like really excited about the new Space Marines, and so. And the weirder of their customers end up becoming the artists and the guys with podcasts and everything that are still into Warhammer, but a lot of the money also comes from just, you have to be able to sell it to kids too, and so they have different expectations.
No, yeah, I mean, in general, I guess it's nice that it can cater to a lot of different people of different interests and like abilities and like means, because I guess one of the common things people laugh about is like, could kids even get into the hobby anymore with how expensive everything is? And like, I don't even know. I mean,
well, from what I remember, it was already expensive. Like,
it was always expensive. That's true.
Yeah. I mean, now at least there are some starter box games and stuff that are somewhat more of a good value, even if the moment you actually get into it in a big way, you realize that the pricing scheme's all over the place, and it's still challenging.
Though I guess for like younger kids, like, I mean, if you'd buy like a box of some of their models, like that would probably keep you occupied for a long time.
Oh yeah.
It certainly did for us.
Yeah,
like if you get like a starter set, it's already, like, honestly, as a kid, if I did play more time as a kid, and already having my full Warband painted was an amazing accomplishment. Like, and like, it's crazy, because when I started painting again, I was like, how did I find this so hard and frustrating? When I look at the models that like I put on 3 color and 1 dry brush, and already it was like really hard for me to get to that point. No, I have more patience, and I find that really easy. But yeah, I think most of the people who are into it had a couple of Christmas worth of Warhammer, you know.
Yeah. That certainly was how it was with us. Well, kind of speaking to maybe that, like, this hobby side of Games Workshop's hobby, you actually wrote an article in the 28 magazine, I believe. I think the third volume, called "The Imaginary Hobbyist," and I would certainly encourage anyone who hasn't to find 28 magazine online and just read through it. But in the third issue, there's a short article called "The Imaginary Hobbyist." It talks a lot about this idea of a large portion of the fun of the hobby can be just sort of imagining things and thinking about projects and things, and it doesn't have to be you getting all stressed out about how, oh, you really need to get this next army done and whatnot, and don't need to turn it into a job unless that's your goal. And with that in mind, how much of your hobby is imaginary, and do you have any current like miniature projects and such that you're working on in addition to your obviously comic work?
Yeah, so that article was definitely inspired by my hobby life, because like, drawing and doing all that stuff is already like a big time thing. And also, I don't really have a lot of people near me who are into Warhammer. Like, I can kind of bully some family members into playing Warcry with me, and my brother who lives far away is I got him back into painting too. But a lot of time I'm just thinking about it and reading blogs and whatever. And yeah, I don't have as much time as I would like to give to the hobby. But I have a couple of projects. Like, one of my projects is just to finish some Warcry Warbands and Terrain. I already have enough to play, but I still have I've been slowly working on the starter set Terrain, making custom bases with tiles and all that stuff. And so I have to get to it at some point to finish them and paint them. And I'm painting currently some Nighthaunt, because my father really liked the Nighthaunt miniatures, and I decided as a Christmas present, since I didn't have a lot of money either, but I already had some Nighthaunt, that I would offer to paint him up a full warband that he can play with me.
That's great.
And so, yeah, that's what I've been working on these days. And also, so I have a lot of imaginary projects I want to get to, or stuff. Like, I have some cousins that we kind of made up a small lost planet in the 40k universe, and had converted some warbands and had some games in it. Not even using Games Workshop rules, we are using a modified version of the one-page rules, miniature rules. I don't know if you guys know this. It's yeah, it's a pretty simple system. You have like a couple of stats only, and it's more like Warcry. It's more like you activate one guy, then the opponent activates one guy, and we added some cards that you draw, kind of like in Warhammer Underworld. Some cards that allow you to have more cinematic actions, at some points. But it's mostly for the fun of, geeking out and converting models without any pressure.
Yeah, that sounds great. Is there any place that people could follow or see your miniature work? Like, I don't know if I've seen any of your miniature work.
Well, I have an Instagram account for that, but I think I'm just gonna merge it with my Mortal Realms account, because it's like, I haven't honestly posted anything in like 1 year on it, and
I mean, maybe I've seen it. Like, I honestly don't know if I even realized.
Yeah, it's possible that you've seen it, because I've been kind of active on the Ink 28 side, but it's called based on a name I have on some forums. It's called Moldek Minis, and Moldek is spelled Moldek, and it's Moldek Minis. And yeah, you can see some of the stuff I've been doing, but it's honestly, I have like already 3 Instagram accounts for my comics, and I think I'm gonna kill this one, because too many accounts.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I think I have been following that as well. I just somehow didn't put 2 and 2 together, which is somewhat surprising considering you have some of your art in there. I've
not been very active, so it's probably you haven't seen all the posts. But I was actually, since I'd been following like some Blanchitsu projects, like you guys have been doing with like the Mordheim projects, and all the Iron Slit guys and stuff like that. And I was on the cusp of finally being part of it, when I was supposed to be part of Anna Polanczak's project, that's called Sunhold.
Yeah.
And I was starting to draw plans for the warbands when COVID-19 hit, and we are supposed to go to Zagreb in Croatia to have games there and everything. So that's a project that I want to get back to at some point, to have a warband ready for for whenever we can travel internationally again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited about that. To be honest, I think Anna Polenchak is one of my favorite, weird niche hobbyists. Like, she has an amazing aesthetic, a great universe too. Seems really nice also.
No, yeah, she is. She is great. She is great.
So yeah.
Or continue. Sorry.
Yeah, I was trying to think about, because I probably understated the number of hobby projects I want to do, because I have a lot of. I'm trying not to buy almost any miniatures if I can help it.
I understand
but,
that.
Yeah, I have one of the things I want to do actually is like some of the comics I made for Mortal Realms. I want to try to bring them into miniature form.
Oh, that would be
Especially
great.
the one with the muscular duck that was kind of a prelude to my Quickening comics.
Yeah.
It's this one I want to. I actually traded. I sent the original comic to some guy on Instagram that in return sent me a Bulgur miniature. So I can cut off the head and sculpt a tiny duck head, and I paint him yellow and have a duck gore.
That's great.
That sounds wonderful.
Well, so when are you going to get into the non-fungible tokens? Ha 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 ha.
It's weird. Like, I've been contacted by a guy a while ago about that. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of speculation, but also I'd love to make some money. But like, what's weird is that I feel like people think these tokens have value by themselves, but it's just another way to buy original art.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only worth what people are ready to pay for, So
Yeah, and I think we see a bunch of news articles about such and such selling for like $500,000 or something.
yeah.
Which that's not to say that everybody who puts out some of their art as an NFT is going to get that. Like, they certainly will not.
Yeah, you see that, and then you see it's like Mike Mignola who just sold, an original Hellboy painting or whatever, and like, yeah, obviously it's gonna go for some money. But
Yes,
I
yeah.
to be honest, I think if also I'm not sure if it's really that big of a concern, but I've seen a lot of people pushing back because of the environmental cost of Ethereum. That is mostly the cryptocurrency that is used, and so because it uses a lot of CPU power to be certified or whatever.
And particularly Bitcoin, like the amount of processing power that's needed to like verify all the transactions is absurd, to the point that it is certainly not good for the environment, how much electricity that it uses for that. That certainly there are some other cryptocurrencies that are being developed that don't use as much, but are they going to become as popular as like say Bitcoin or Ethereum? Who really knows?
Yeah, it's hard to speculate now.
Yeah, so I think anyway, if I was doing some NFT, I think I would try to make it like, I wouldn't want to sell just a static image, maybe like something that a small interactive video game, or anything that actually takes advantage of the fact that it's digital original art.
That's a good
kind of
idea.
It's weird to just sell a JPEG, like what's the I mean, I guess it's more like a win for the art market, for the art dealers, and maybe for some artists who had a mostly digital following, but it's not like the revolution that some people are painting it as. You could already, I mean, technically I've been selling digital art, it's not an NFT, it's just like commission.
Yeah.
That's
So
fair.
yeah. So yeah, maybe I'll do some NFT at some point, but
I would say hold off on it for a while. Let's see where it goes.
yeah.
'Cause now
Maybe
it
if-
seems like everybody's just jumping on the bandwagon before they really understand the medium that they're dealing with.
That's
Mhm.
true.
yeah, I think for a lot of artists it's not really a big risk because they'd be drawing anyway, so they may as well.
Yeah,
do
it
that.
doesn't really affect your workflow too much.
But yeah,
Um,
it's kind of like I've been holding off on a lot of merch too, like doing t-shirts and stuff like that, mostly because if you're gonna use just middleman websites to print everything, it feels like you're just becoming another cog in the consumerist machine. Like you're selling mugs like all the other guys, and it's all printed in the same factory, and it brings nothing really. So I'm trying to just sell prints of my work for now.
I think that's cool because honestly, we've even considered trying to sell like T-shirts or things like that. And like, in addition to just being like some cog in some machine, it's also like the quality isn't often there either because they're just like printers, like cheap, like printers printing directly onto like fabric and such, so it's not like a nice silk screen type thing in most cases, so like it doesn't even have the quality that you would like to put forward with like your work. Like you don't want to just have some cheap thing that peels off after 2 washes or something, like because that like belittles your own creativity as well. So like yeah, I feel in that sense it sort of behooves you to I don't know, take it slowly and make sure you're doing what you actually want to do.
Yeah, I think it's like my plan that I've been kind of a bit slow to launch, but that it's definitely gonna happen soon, is just to start going on Patreon, so that people who really like my work can help support me so that I can do more comics and whatever. But
yeah,
I actually like this better because like I don't want to be pushing some cheap products and trying to get viral. If I can just have like people who are really invested in my work and get something out of it, can help me make a living, and that would be enough for me. And so I'm launching that soon. Also, by the way, I'm glad this is my first actual live stream, and I want to try to get on Twitch soon. So maybe we'll do some other ones.
Yeah, no, that would be great.
I feel this seems to be a good example that it does seem to work pretty smoothly without a huge amount of headaches. So
yeah, I'm sitting on a chair with my iPad, and it's really comfy.
in not long at all, you had this beautiful little piece with a little goblin, and I particularly like the little ghost you added in the background here.
Yeah, I was thinking that the mushroom should be taking effect,
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, but yeah, technology certainly allows for a lot of cool things like this. Do you, most of the art you do now, is it through like an iPad and such, and do you prefer that as like a medium now?
Well, it depends. Like, I'd say it's much less of a headache for most of what I do to do it on the iPad, because I don't have to scan the drawing and then clean it up and everything. But like the best feeling is like drawing on paper. Like it's harder to correct your mistake and everything, but it's really very natural, And so what I've been doing is that most of my comics and most of my illustration work, where I know I'm gonna have edits to do and stuff like that, I do it on the iPad. But when I want to kind of maybe have more surprises and have more fun in the process, I do it on paper. And so, for instance, like Neverchosen is done on paper and colored digitally.
Mm-hmm.
And most of what I post on my second Instagram account, that's Mortel Realms, it's mostly done by hand, often with watercolors. And I've been doing like an illustration for the magazine Weird Science.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that was also done completely by hand with like inks and everything, and it was lots of fun. And so I try to have a balance of both, because I think with the handmade stuff you can get some really nice surprises, that you wouldn't get.
Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe as sort of a last question here, since we're going on an hour here, do you have any words on just general inspirations that have sort of influenced your art style, or things that like other artists that you're particularly fond of, and like what they've done with the medium and things of that nature?
Yeah, so there's like obviously a lot of things I could talk about. I'm just gonna go off the cuff, like what I can think of, and maybe also what could be interesting to people listening to this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for the Warhammer side, there's a lot of the senior part of, the Ink 28, Dark Age of Sigmar, all of that stuff. Particularly, I think I really love Anna Polanczak's work, which is known as also Gardens of Hecate.
Mm-hmm.
And Weirding Way is also really amazing. I mean, I think a lot of it are guys you actually had on the podcast, and stuff like that. But in Warhammer also, John Blanche is an artist I really admire. I also have to shout out Black Crab Art.
Oh yes.
I think his name is like Moritz Krebs or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a German guy who draws in a very Blanchian Mordheim style. It's not my style of drawing at all, but I really like it. I actually bought an original from him, and I really like it.
There's a Kickstarter just up of some of his art being turned into miniatures that just went live yesterday.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
Black Crab Miniatures, I guess it's called.
Oh, that's nice. I'll have to check it out. And yeah, I've so a lot of people in that scene that I really like. And other than that, yeah, it's like I talked about Casey Green, and there's a lot of other like comic strip artists that are really good that I like. Almost too much for me to just be able to pick one out,
I understand.
One thing I just recommend, one piece of art that I really like and that's been a big influence for me over the years is the work of a filmmaker called David O'Reilly. Like an Irish name, like O''Reilly.
Yeah.
And he's like a 3D filmmaker who did. You can find at least one of his shorts online. That's called The External World. It's from I think about 10 years ago. It's done in 3D, but kind of low poly, almost. I think at some point you even see the bounding boxes of the 3D software, so it's a kind of lo-fi aesthetic. And it's really hard to describe, but if you Google David O'Reilly, The External World, you can see like it's a very poetic, very strange few minutes short film. And it has a lot of what I like because it's very cartoony, but it's also like cruel and you feel that it says something about life and whatever. And so
Yeah.
Good stuff to check out.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so certainly have to look into that.
Definitely, it's a good few minutes.
Yeah, okay.
And
All right,
perhaps,
well-
well, what about one piece of advice that you would have for aspiring artists?
So, I mean, I think if you want to be an artist, you just have, it's like outrunning a bear, you know, you don't have to be the best, you just have to keep running and the other ones give up.
So long
And
as the
so,
bear doesn't catch up to you and like maul
Yeah.
you, you're doing okay.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just you have to find, like, if you're feeling really bad about where you're at, that's a bad sign. Because if you want to last long enough to make it, you have to find a way to make it fun for you, I think. Like, some
Mhm.
people really thrive on the pressure of it, but personally, I think if you want to have a decent life, you have to find a way to do art that doesn't make you want to die. So
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
so yeah, try to find the fun of it and realize also that there's no point where you actually, I think, have made it. And so, I mean, it's almost a cliche that even the most famous artists still feel like they need that next step to really, say what
Yeah.
they want to say. So
Mhm.
just try to find a way to enjoy the process. And also, if you don't feel like it, it's not a failure, it's like, maybe it's life, maybe tomorrow you'll feel like it again, maybe you'll never do, but it's just a thing you do, it's not happiness or calling or whatever, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, well, no, I
So,
feel that's all good advice. Good advice.
yeah, take some pressure off, basically, like.
Mhm. And enjoy things.
Yeah.
Well, I guess with that, like, perhaps we could start to wrap this up. Like, it's been a huge pleasure to have you on here, Pierre Mortel. You can find just on Instagram and on Warhammer Community page through Neverchosen, that particular comic. But, like, is there any last thing, like, thing you'd like to shout out or anything of that nature?
Well, maybe if I had taken some notes, I could check it and have something to shout out. But sadly, I didn't prepare this, so I don't have I don't have anything specially. But yeah, like, if you've been watching the video and like the art you've seen, you can find more on my Instagram channel, just Pierre Mortel. And I'm sure you can find it also in the show notes or whatever.
Yeah,
And,
no, it will be there.
And there's another Instagram account that's called Mortel Realms. That's Mortel with an E, not an A. And that's where I post some fantasy stuff. So if you like that, check this out and drop a comment, a message, whatever. I usually check it and try to answer everything, unless I get really, really big. But for now. And thank you guys so much. It's been really a pleasure to be on this podcast and chat with you. And kind of surreal, because this is the voice I usually listen to when I'm drawing on painting.
Yeah, well, it's been really wonderful to have you on, and like nice to, hear from a different perspective. Also, just one that isn't just completely focused on building models, but exploring sort of this hobby we love from, a slightly different
Yeah.
perspective and angle, but just one just as valid and exciting as the others. So, yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe at some point we'll have an episode where I come into just more talk about hobby projects and stuff like that. Would be fun too.
Yeah, that would be
Certainly.
wonderful.
All right.
That would be wonderful.
Great.
All
Yeah,
right.
well, thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody. All right, we've done it. We've recorded it.
Nice.
It worked really well. Like, it's neat watching like the whole process of you go through and like sort of figuring out everything with what you're drawing, like going back, modifying and changing things. Like, I like watching that whole process.
Yeah, this was pretty fun for me too, and like really nice to it's been a funny experience to be drawing something that I didn't plan at all while talking about this subject. You know, like it was a really nice time. I'm actually like pleasantly surprised by the drawing. You know, it's looking nice.
I like it a lot. His little you can clearly tell he's eating the mushroom, and his eyes are kind of like giving some sense that he's not quite at his normal capacities. And then the little colorful ghost.
It's kicking in, you know, like in a few minutes he's gonna be grabbing his ball and chain and
yeah, that's right. Well, and that's also kind of nice that like you didn't even have to have like the ball and chain or some weapons or anything to convey like this character and that he's in the Warhammer setting and such. And like that in itself is nice because Games Workshop has a tendency to be all about weapons and stuff as opposed to characters.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what really interests me with Warhammer and Neverchosen and all that stuff is kind of the idea that this is an universe that's centered around war and battles, but there's still actually like a world happening, and I like the idea that it's kind of going behind in the other side of the camera, you know, seeing what the goblins are doing backstage, you know, when they're not fighting, all that stuff.
Well, I think that makes all of the world seem richer, that the notion that the people there actually have lives outside of just constant battle.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm missing most about Warhammer Fantasy, is that it was more established, that it was actually like kingdoms and stuff like that. And you could really pick, like, I've always loved the stuff where just like a bunch of beastmen attacking a small village and the guard are trying to fight them off and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I used to be active on the TGA forums of Age of Sigmar. I did a small drawing at some point during a discussion about that I would like to redo for Mortal Realms, which was that you see a peasant in the Warhammer Fantasy world is just called like a farmer, and so it's just a guy with like how do you call it, a fork,
pitchfork.
With just a guy with a pitchfork, you know. And in the Age of Sigmar, he's called like a carrot sprout harvester, you know, and he's like doing an invocation, pulling a giant carrot out of the ground, you know, and has multiple capes and whatever. So everything is so over the top that even the peasants are like weird wizards.
And it has to have a name that is sort of esoteric such that it can be copyrighted.
Yeah, but it's also like just different nouns pasted together, you know, every time. But yeah, I mean, I think they're doing some. I understand why they structured the universe in this way, and I think it does offer more creative avenues at the price of a bit of authenticity. And I think you're only gonna find this authenticity in small pockets of their universes, but not in the whole product line. But it's because it's a product line, you know, so you can't really escape that kind of stuff.
There's Sadboy and Billy Boo.
I should do a crossover at some point. I did do a Sadboy street prize drawing Warhammer. He's painting Warhammer. And he's like just spent 2 panels saying, I've been really trying, you know, to work on some subtle hues that kind of evoke, you know, the rays of dawn but filtered through a green, so just being very precious about the colors. And they said, so that guy is called Gothrock the Reaper, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been thinking about. I'm not. I have too much project also in not just in the hobby but also in general. Too many ideas. But I think it could be fun to do like a comic strip that's around a bunch of people who play tabletop games. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I have another call.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no
okay.
problem at all.
Well, yeah, so we could wrap this up. Thanks a lot for being with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been really, really fun, and yeah, I'd love to do this again. Sometimes, like I'm gonna set up also my Twitch channel and maybe do some painting hangouts sometimes or stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks again for joining us, and to all the viewers here this morning, thanks for popping
thanks
in,
everyone.
commenting, asking questions.
Yeah, it's been really fun, and I'll send you guys the drawings too. So if you want,
Okay.
so you have it if you want to do something with it.
Yeah, that would be
Perfect.
great.
All right.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And we will talk to everyone again soon. Keep on enjoying the hobby. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Yep. See you, everybody.
Over and out.
Bye.